All right, here we go. This should be our last video for chapter 2. Hey, not bad. I'm taking 3 hours and making them into one. I don't know. You're like, oh, Miss Collins, please, you're torturing us. Okay, here we go. We're talking about proteins, like I said, complete versus incomplete proteins with the amino acids and found in our foods. And traditional dishes generally have complete proteins, right? Like rice and beans, you get your carbohydrates, you get your proteins. Doing well there. All right. So 20 amino acids make up all the proteins necessary for growth, repair, replacement. Complete proteins contain all the essential amino acids, while incomplete do not. So again, if you're a vegetarian, you got to watch out for that. You got to make sure you get all your amino acids. If you do not, you're going to have issues with making proteins. Okay. Hair is made out of protein, so curly versus straight. You could take a look at that in the book. The sequence of amino acids, again, I said that. It's like CAT or ACT or TAC. You change the amino acids, it changes the whole protein. So it says a protein's particular amino acid sequence determines how it folds into a particular three-dimensional shape. The shape determines many of the protein's properties, including molecules it will interact with. Okay. Enzymes. Enzymes are really important. Enzymes are proteins, and what they do is they help speed up chemical reactions. So an enzyme has a specific shape. So think of a protein, a big long chain of amino acids, and it's folded up into a certain shape, and that shape determines its function, okay? And what it does is it helps, let's say, break down stuff or build stuff. And what enzymes do is they increase the speed of a chemical reaction. So it says enzymes are proteins that help initiate, speed up chemical reactions. They aren't permanently altered by the process, rather can be used again and again. But if temperature is too high, those hydrogen bonds can break and they can alter the shape of the protein, and then the protein can't do its job. Enzymes regulate a reaction in several ways. Malformed enzymes can cause problems. So sometimes people have genetic diseases where their enzymes aren't made correctly, and then they have all kinds of problems because of it. So temperature can affect the enzyme's reaction rate. pH can affect enzyme activity. That's why blood pH has to stay within a narrow range. There are things that can also affect enzymes. Okay. So here, if it says incorrect amino acid sequence, here's protein. What if you change the R into an L and the shape is different? Now it can't do its job, and that's a problem. Okay. So enzyme activity is influenced by physical factors such as temperature. So that's why high fevers are not good. High fevers are good to kill any foreign invaders. But if it gets too high, right, like 105, now it starts altering enzymes and people start having problems. pH, same thing. Too high, too low, not good. Okay. Yeah. All right. Finally, in this chapter, DNA, okay, nucleic acids. Okay, so in this chapter, we talked about atoms, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen being the big four. Atoms combine with use their electrons to combine, make molecules, okay? And then the major molecules. So we talked about water and the properties of water. We talked about carbohydrates, so the sugars, right? So monosaccharides, disaccharides, polysaccharides. We talked about lipids, different types of lipids, different jobs. Then we talked about proteins made out of amino acids, 20 amino acids, string them together, you got proteins. Now, finally, the last thing we're going to talk about are nucleic acids. And I'm not going to spend too much time on nucleic acids because we're going to spend tons of time on nucleic acids when we get into genetics, okay? So here, this beautiful sculpture looks like a twisted ladder showing a DNA molecule, right? Nucleic acids store information on how to build and run the body. So it's the genetic material. What has the information to make proteins? DNA does. Okay. So nucleic acids, macromolecules store information. Here's DNA. Here's the structure of the DNA. I'm not going to spend too much time on it because we will spend a lot of time on it when we get into genetics. But if you look, here's oxygen, phosphate group. Here are the carbons. Here are the hydrogens, right? And here's the molecule. Right, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. There's RNA, ribonucleic acid. They both contain the genetic material. That's what you need to remember. Right, DNA holds the genetic information to build an organism, and it looks like a twisted ladder. The sugars and phosphates are on the end, the bases are in the middle. These tiny little dots right there, those are hydrogen bonds. Oh, there it is. Those are hydrogen bonds. They're really important. Remember those weak bonds, okay? It means nothing right now, but it will in the future. RNA, yes. So we go from DNA to RNA to protein, and protein's real important. RNA differing from DNA. The sugar in RNA is ribose. It's single-stranded. It has uracil instead of thymine. And again, we'll talk about this more when we get into genetics. All right. So we are finished with chapter 2, and there was a lot to look at. Right? So atoms, their structure, right? And the nucleus, protons, neutrons, the electrons orbiting around, how they bond with their electrons. They want to fill those outer shells. And remember the 3 types of bonds. So covalent, where they share, ionic, gain, lose, and then hydrogen bonds. Water, H2O, and the 4 features. So if you remember cohesion, high heat, I can't think, what were the other 2? High heat capacity, cohesion, the density, so it has a low density as a solid, and then lastly, a wonderful solvent. Then carbohydrates, the sugars, their structure and their functions, carb, CHO, the monosaccharide, mono meaning 1, disaccharide, di meaning 2, polysaccharide meaning many, and their functions. They all function, all for energy. Lipids, their structure and function. So lipids, also carbohydrate, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. And then the different types of lipids. So fats for energy storage, sterols for making the steroid hormones, and then the phospholipids for making the membranes. Proteins, that huge, huge category of molecules. So they're all made out of those amino acids. But then their function, many functions, whether they're building muscle, whether they're making enzymes, whether they're making antibodies, many functions. And lastly, the nucleic acids, their structure and function. So DNA for genetic material, RNA for genetic material. All right, so we are finished with chapter 2. I do want you to do the homework, and I think it's a really good idea. When you're watching the videos, do the homework. The homework is your study guide, so to study for the test. Okay? All right, we'll see you in lab.